conferencecallhd.com. There is one other participant in the conference. All participants are muted. What's going on, Bradfield family? Good morning. See if all 12 people get on here this morning.
Well, I was meeting it.
What's going on, Humos family? Miss Claudette, good morning. Miss Danielle Ellis, good morning. Miss Regina Morgs, Mr. Kazi and Genesis, good morning. Mr. Ernest Elmore Jr., good morning, sir. No, it's just Ernest Elmore. Earl Moore Jr. is yeah, okay. I'm tripping. I get all the E's and all that mixed up. Anyway, good morning. What's going on, Coach Carwise, Miss Carwise, Miss Claudette, Miss Heather, good morning. Miss Jennifer, HLC, Miss Heather Lynn Cross, good morning. Sister Callis from Dallas. What's going on, Sister Callis? We were, I don't know which Bailey you worked at, but we were, that was last year for my graduation. When we was downtown by Baylor. Yeah, we were last year. We were down there last year for my graduation. Well, I don't know if you worked at the one downtown or not. But good morning. What's up, Mr. Damon? Mr. Shepard, good morning, sir. Miss Regina. Apostle LaJohn Cole, good morning, sir. How you doing this morning? Good morning. What's up, Memphis? Yep, downtown. That's what we were. We were at the Home to Suites down there, downtown. We were right there. Off of I can't even remember the name of the street. That was a Cass Street. I don't know why I'm asking. Jennifer looked at me like, "Why are you asking me about a street in a whole nother city in downtown?" What's up, DAW? All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. Prayerfully, everybody had a blessed and prosperous day on yesterday. I would like you to know that I did cook the chicken, and everybody's living the next day, just as they have over the past several years. And shout out to Rory Lawrence, who said that he didn't start washing his chicken till he got married, and so he said he didn't even know that Rory, Roy. Yeah, he said that he didn't even start washing his chicken until he got married. He said he knows a thing. So man, I just want to let everybody know that everybody in my household still living. She don't feel sick. She talking crazy. Anyway, but good morning, everyone. Prayer for everybody's doing good. And so real quick this morning, as we get ready to get on about our day, I'm still looking at Acts chapter number 7. Now I want to share this with us. And hopefully this will be encouragement to you that sometimes God has to hide us. Sometimes God has to hide us. And I remember years ago, I see you, Miss Linda, about watching the chicken. It's over with now. The heat killed the germs. Years ago, there was a preacher, and I don't, don't even get me started. Don't even get me lying. But basically, he was talking about the process. There used to be a process back in the day where they would develop pictures, and they had to develop the pictures in the dark. And they used to have this thing called a Polaroid camera, where you would shake it like a Polaroid picture. But film would have to be developed in the dark. And he explained the whole developmental process. And Happy Wednesday. Yeah, because today is the day you win. Oh, but okay, let's move on. But just wait, stay over there hidden. But and he basically was saying that sometimes God does his best work in the dark. And that he does his best work in the dark. That God has to hide us, to develop us in order to expose us to, or to allow us to be put on display, that we have to be developed in the dark. And when you look at what's called Miss Belinda Drake, when you look at the life of Moses, there are 3 different epochs, time periods. The first 40 years in Pharaoh's courtyard, and the second 40 years on the backside of the desert. That when Moses did not have the right timing, the right way, and the right mindset to do what God was telling him to do, God had to move him. God will create a certain set of circumstances where he removes us and then brings us back to either the place or a place that he wants to use us. And the reason being sometimes, you all, is because we are not fully developed or we're not ready or it's not his timing. That when he moved Moses, he hid Moses. He created a set of circumstances so that he could, Moses would flee and run, and Moses was hidden on the backside of the desert. Now, this is something that should be encouraging us, should be an encouragement to us. I'm sorry, is that God has an incubation process, that God has a process by which he hides us, on which he removes us from places of prominence or positions of prominence. And it seems like we are in an insignificant place, and where we are and what we're doing does not matter. And actually, you all, that is God's protection over us. God does some of his best work when he hides us, when he moves us, when he puts us in spaces and places that are seemingly insignificant. And we're wondering if he has forgotten about us, or if the promise or the revelation that he has given to us, if it has been null and voided. And it is in those periods of hiding that we have to perfect the craft of waiting, of trusting, of believing, of living out our faith, even though it does not feel like it. And this is the thing, you all. This removal process of God is a blessed thing. One of the things that I always, well, several things, but he moved Jacob away from his mother and father in order for Jacob to realize the promise that was over his life. He took Jacob's family, removed them from the promised land, and birthed a nation inside of the land of Goshen and in captivity, in slavery, in bondage. He hid a nation in plain sight before he deployed them to the promised land. He moved Moses from Pharaoh's courtyard with all of the amenities, all the, we call them accoutrements, all of the amenities and everything that he had at his disposal. He moved Moses from Pharaoh's courtyard all the way to the backside of the desert tending sheep. He moved him. He hid him. He was getting him ready and prepared. And every day Moses spent out there in that wilderness on the backside of the desert, leading his father-in-law's sheep, he did not know that that was preparing him to shepherd God's people through the wilderness. That God's ability to hide us, that God's ability to move us, that God's ability to take us off the scene, to instill in us the things that we need instilled in us so that we can show back up and do his work. Y'all know that Mount Carmel is one of my favorite scenes in the Bible. That's why the church is named Carmel Friendship Church. Um, uh, Carmel, not caramel, but Carmel Friendship Church after Mount Carmel in the Bible. One of my favorite scenes. But I wholeheartedly believe the reason that Elijah could stand boldly on the top of that mountain and pray down fire, lightning, whatever you want to call it, and pray it down for the sacrifice. The reason that Elijah could stand there after the prophets of Baal were killed and send his servant, no, rain is going to come. And the servant kept on going. And Elijah said, go back and look again. And all he saw was a little bitty cloud about the size of a man's hand. And Elijah said, all right, get ready. Rain is coming. I believe that the reason Elijah can stand in those moments is because God hid him by the brook and he hid him in the widow's house. Y'all, that there are certain things that God does for us in private that gives us the ability to stand publicly. There are certain things that happen in our prayer closets. There are certain things that happen in the places of obscurity. There are certain things that happen in the unknown, in the secret places that God instills he instills faith in us. He instills something in us in those hidden and private spaces that give us what we need so that we can handle the onslaught of standing in public. And oftentimes, truthfully, if we can't handle the public pressure and scrutiny, that means that we didn't lean into God enough in the private spaces and places and the times that He's hid us. And so we find ourselves in a season where we're being hidden by God. If we find ourselves in a season where it seems as though we are forgotten by God, where we're waiting on God, that's not the time to throw a fit. That's not the time to give up. That's not the time to throw in the towel. That's the time to lean in on God and see what He's trying to do in our hearts and our minds to refine our character and make us who He would have us to be so that we can stand at the right place at the right time and do the right thing. And so there's a frustration that comes with waiting. There's a frustration that comes with being hidden. There's a frustration that comes where Moses was at the top and then he was removed to obscurity, hidden. And then God presented him again. And we want to make sure that we trust in all of God. You know, it's amazing how we trust God when everything is good or when things go a certain way. But the second things don't go the way that we think they should, that's when we start questioning God. That's when we start doubting God. That's when we don't trust His process. We don't think God knows what He's doing. We don't think God has it all figured out. That's not how our Father works. He knows the beginning from the end. He is the author and the finisher of our faith. So what we want to do, as we look to our example, Jesus, and even Jesus had to be hidden. Like even Jesus had to be hidden, and not only that, his public ministry didn't start for 30 years. Moses didn't start for 40 years. Like, be patient. Understand that God is working. God's timing is best. He knows what He's doing. And don't try to force it. If God is putting you in a hidden place, you can force it. You can make it happen. You can pry the door open. You could do the wrong thing at the wrong time in the wrong way and get the wrong results. Or we can trust in God, trust in His timing, trust in His faithfulness, trust in His goodness, and lean and depend on Him and allow Him to perfect our character while we are hidden in a seemingly place of obscurity. You got anything you want to add to that, woman? And I'll say this real quick, just as a source of encouragement. Believe that God does not waste any seasons of your life. Believe that He is God of all the seasons, of you're going out and you're coming in. And that we have to learn, especially for those of us who are type A personalities, especially for those of us who are extremely impatient. Now you can testify this. I have become way more patient over the years than I used to be. Like, and the reason being is you can force open enough doors and get your butt kicked enough times, yeah, and muscle them open and get involved in enough battles to realize that it's best to wait on God's timing. You can go to enough places that God didn't send you and fight enough battles that God didn't tell you to fight. And like, we're like, you know what? Maybe I should just sit still and wait on the Lord and trust in His process. And if this is my season where I got to hide in caves if this is my season where I got to hide in a widow's house, or I got to hide by the brook, or if this is my season where I got to hide at the back of the desert, or if this is my season where I've got to be in the land of Goshen, and this is my season where I've got to hide from Herod, if this is my season where God is removing me, I need to learn how to sit, soak up what the Holy Spirit is trying to teach me before he presents me again, or before he uses me the way that he sees fit. And if I am impatient, listen to me, to my type A, my D, and my I personalities, we will mess something up. We will outrun God. And I say this before I pray. Years ago, when I stayed in Dallas, my friend slash mentor slash friend, Dr. Johnny R. Bradley. I remember one time there was a lot of things I wanted, and I wanted it all right now. In my 20s, I wanted everything yesterday. I'm thinking the Lord is moving too slow. And Dr. Bradley, we were sitting in our old church at the old building, and he looked me in my face. He said, Reverend, he said, the Lord will take you as fast as you want to go. He said, the question is, how fast do you want to go? And in my head at that time, I'm thinking, man, I want to go about 140, 150 miles an hour. Looking back, I realize I've come to learn to appreciate the pace at which God takes me, that sustains me, and doesn't have me all coming apart and falling apart, trying to do everything and be everything all at once. And I see now the significance of pacing ourselves at God's pace, at his speed, doing his will, his way, his timing. And that involves periods of being hidden, involves periods of God hiding us before he puts us on a platform, because there are some things he wants to instill in us and he wants to teach us about himself. And I definitely think that way about the church. How before we got on our 12 acres in our corner lot, that he hid us in a 4,000 square foot office building behind Dunkin' Donuts. And he used that as a place to incubate us, to grow us, to show us what he can do and who he is. And so we could trust the same God that was in the office park. We can trust the same God that's on the corner. And that everything that he's shown, every vision, every promise, every revelation, he's going to fulfill it. He's going to do it, and we can trust in him. And the reason we can trust in him is not because he just all of a sudden showed up when we got to the corner on the 12 acres. It's because he met us at what was the address? 3814 Terman Loop, west of Chapel Folder, 33544, behind the Dunkin' Donuts, across the street from Bright Horizon, in a 4,000 square foot building with 2 toilets. He met us there, and he performed some wonderful things. And so now that we are where we are as a ministry, we're not surprised. We're not always stressing God and worrying. We're trusting in the same God because we've seen him do it in private. And now we're just looking for him to do the same thing in public on a much grander level. And so, y'all, it is, yes, it does. It becomes very lonely. Ms. Nadine, I say this to you. Well, first of all, when I thought about loneliness, I thought of that verse from Luther Vandross, "Loneliness" from Superstar. Anyway, man, sometimes in our lonely moments, and I look at this in when you said that, I even think about David, even how David was surrounded by people. And it talks about this, I think it's in First Samuel, First or Second Samuel, when it talks about how he was hiding in the wilderness, and when he was running from Saul, and Saul was trying to take his life, and Jonathan, some people say Jonathan was stabbing him in the back and telling his dad, well, all that stuff. But David went through bouts of loneliness. Those psalms that depict the struggles of humanity, the struggles of feeling left out, the struggles of feeling forgotten, out in the Psalms of lament, I would encourage you to read those Psalms. And what I love about this, you all, is that we can be in the midst of people and still feel lonely, still be alone and still have that loneliness feeling. And what I love about David, in when he was lonely, when he felt by himself, and there was, I would imagine, that's why people say too blessed to be stressed. Man, look at David's life. He had the anointing all over him, and he had some very stressful situations. That even in that, especially at Ziklag, when they were looking to stone him, he found a way to encourage himself in the Lord. That those hidden moments, that he got away from everyone else and he encouraged himself in the Lord. That they were on the brink of actually trying to stone him and kill him, blaming him for everything that was going wrong. The who was it that stole their family? It wasn't the Amalekites? I can't remember. That stole like the women, the children, the livestock at that time. Huh? I can't remember either, but I don't think it was Amalekites. But they came in and raided the camp while David was out fighting, and he fought one battle to come home and had to fight another battle. And when he got by himself and encouraged himself, he found strength again. And sometimes, you all, God uses us being by ourselves as a tool to lean on Him and be strengthened by Him. And so it does get challenging when we are hidden, when we feel forgotten, when we feel overlooked, and and you're right, it does require for us to grow in our faith in a very painful way. And we hit the highlights of it, but we went through some, and we go through some seasons of being hidden or struggling with some things that are extremely difficult and challenging. That and this is a challenge. You can't quit. I was talking to somebody the other day, and it's like what he's going through, there's too much waiting for him in tomorrow and for us tomorrow that we can't quit. We cannot throw in the towel. God is birthing something on the inside of us while we're hidden, that He's going to use at this next stage and next level in our lives. And if Moses would have quit on the backside of the desert, then he would have missed out on seeing God's people walk through the Red Sea, standing in front of Pharaoh and saying that the Lord said, "Let my people go," and watching God perform the 10 plagues, watching bitter waters made sweet, watching people walk around in the wilderness and their shoes and their sandals never wear out. He would have missed all the things that God has had did if he would have stopped at the backside of the desert and gave up. And so my encouragement to all of us is, I'm not saying it's easy. Okay, it was the Amalekites. I be knowing the Bible. Um, yeah, it's not that things are easy. It's not that things are always going to go our way. But if we can faith our way through it, if we can trust in our God, if we can trust that He will see us through not only this season, but this next season in our lives, y'all, it will make a difference in how we operate. So I want to encourage all of us. It's 6:53. Yeah, we're 6:53, so we're gonna go ahead and stop this morning. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and stop this morning. So I just want to encourage y'all, that's God has to hide us sometimes, but trust it. Trust in Him, trust in His process, and He will see us through. You all be blessed. You have a good one, and we'll see you on tomorrow. Be blessed.